Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson. For those of you I hadn't met yet, my name is Reverend Bethany Russell Lowe, and I have the great pleasure and honor of serving this congregation. Our community is striving to be as varied as the blooms of the Sonoran Desert, so whoever you are, whoever you've been, and whoever you are trying to become, we invite you to bring your whole self here and now. We are a covenantal community, which means very simply that we make promises to each other about how we are together when we are together. In this time of continuing pandemic, this community is still wearing masks when we are in worship and concurrent religious education. For those of the age of 2 or 5, we ask 2 to 5-year-olds to practice masking while they're here. And also, getting vaccinated is part of our covenant with each other. So our hope is that you're here with us in person, you are well vaccinated, and that if you're unwilling to be vaccinated, you and I could either have a conversation, but if you're unwilling, we hope you'll join us online next week. I extend a special welcome to any visitors this morning or people who feel like visitors and invite you to fill out a guest information card. If you're joining us online, our YouTube chat administrator, Jesse Hayho, this morning will post a link to the online guest information card right now. You could fill that out if you want to keep in touch with us. And if you're here in person, if you would join us for social hour afterwards, you'll see an alcove off of the social hour hall. It'll say Welcoming Center, and there will be clipboards there with yellow sheets of paper that we invite you to fill out if you want us to follow up with you. We will have a social hour right after the service. There will be coffee, iced tea, lemonade, and today a special pancake breakfast. This is our board is doing a fundraiser for the conflict resolution transformation work it's doing this year, and so this is a fundraiser for that. It will be $10 a person, eat what you can, and we welcome, if it's your first time here, if you're a visitor, you get free lunch. So it will be free pancakes if you're first time with us. We hope you join us. Also, our grief group will meet today at 12:15 in the Reed Room. That's a grief and loss group. No matter what grief or loss you are feeling, you are welcome to join that group of peer support. We will also, just after worship, we'll have a membership book signing. We're going to do that right here, kind of where the choir usually sings. So if you have come prepared to sign a membership book or you're feeling like this is the Sunday to formally join this community, join me right here, right after worship. And also this week, I am restarting from pre-pandemic times my community office hours. This is a time where I sit in a coffee shop for 2 hours and you come and we hang out. It's a great time to come if you want casual conversation or you have like 1 or 2 questions for me. If you want to have a 30-minute meeting, let's schedule that outside of it. This is a time to talk with your minister and anybody else who shows up. Maybe have some informal conversation or less formal conversation in a small environment. So the office hours are going to be 12 to 2 every Thursday. The location is different. It's going to be at Crave Coffee Bar up on Broadway just off of Swan, because the coffee bar across the street has closed. So 12 to 2 on Thursdays starting this week. Come meet me at Crave Coffee Bar. Before we get further into our service, we will start with welcome each other to this space. So I invite you to turn to a neighbor, hopefully one you don't know well, and tell them about a time that something changed, but it was a good change. Something changed, but it was a good change. Science fiction author Octavia Butler once wrote about the tenets of a place called Earthseed. The tenet, the central truth of this place is all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Which makes me imagine a world where change is accepted as truth. Not just a truth hard to swallow, but a truth that we live our lives by, orient our minds around, shape every action. How would your life be different if you met change as if it were divine? If change came your way and you said, "Hey God, nice to see ya. I am blessed by all I change and by all that changes me." Imagine that this big scary change came your way and you greeted it with a hug, a sigh of relief, not out of a spirit of optimism, but out of gratitude for being part of the dynamics of creation, which are always changing, and we along with it. In this spirit of approaching, accepting change with new minds and new hearts, come, let us worship together.
Good morning. My name is Watercolor Golightly, and I'm your worship associate this morning. If everyone could please join me in our chalice lighting words by Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom. Here today, in this place, and these people, may we listen to see that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel so that we can know. And may we know so that we can change ourselves in this world. May this chalice we light our way. And if you have a chalice at home, for those of us joining us remotely, please light it now as we light our chalice here in Holland.
Would you please respond in song, "Rising as You Were Willing and Able"? The words will be on the screen to my right. Make chalice channels for the streams of love where they may broadly run, and love has overflowing streams to fill them everyone. But if at any time we see such channels to provide, the very founts of love for us will soon be parched and dry. For we must share if we would keep the gift all else above. We cease to give, we cease to have, such is the law of love.
Change is divine. I have a story for us today from the Jewish tradition. The 4 chapters of the book of Jonah are read aloud at religious services on the day of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Jonah is a minor prophet in the Hebrew Bible, but he has a big message. It's a story that a lot of us know, so I invite us to listen with new ears today. Let's listen, asking ourselves, when was a time that you resisted change? And when did that change turn into that moment you talked about earlier that became something okay, maybe something good? Here we go. The chapter begins with Jonah being commanded by God to go to a city nearby him called Nineveh. He did not want to go to the city because there lived people who believed differently than he did. He thought, why should I go? They're never going to believe me anyways. People don't change. So he ran. He ran as far as he could in the opposite direction. He said, I'm not going to Nineveh. Got on a sailing ship. Of course, the God of the Hebrew Bible says, I know where you live. Found him on the sailing ship and troubled the waters. A big, huge storm rolls over the ship. The sailors get so afraid they're all going to go down. They repent and they start to pray. They wake up Jonah and said, how can you sleep at this time? You need to come up. Where's this trouble coming from? And Jonah says, it's me. It's me. I'm running away from the command God gave me. Throw me overboard. What better way to avoid God's commandments than being buried alive at sea, right? So what does God do? No, Jonah, sorry. I see you. I know where you sleep. Picks him up out of the water into the belly of a big fish. 3 days and 3 nights, Jonah stays in the belly of the fish, thinking and thinking and thinking. It's a divine time out, right? What's going on? Why are you acting this way? Where does the fish spit Jonah? Exactly right where he started from. God finds Jonah again and says, no, I said Nineveh, not way over there. You're going to Nineveh. And this time Jonah says, fine. He goes to Nineveh. The minute he gets there, he preaches a little bit. All of Nineveh apologizes. They change their ways. They have become saved. You would think Jonah would celebrate, right? Jonah should be the first one on board saying, this is fantastic. Jonah runs up a hill and sulks. He says, why did this happen? Why did they listen? Why didn't what I say actually come true? We don't know. As listeners and with the passage of time in our current context, we can ask some questions of this story. Does Jonah in his life ever come to understand something about the boundless love and forgiveness that God shows to the people of Nineveh? We might ask why some changes seem to land us back right exactly where we started from, just like Jonah. We might also ask why we so often resist change or resist that call of our heart that leads us to our biggest and fullest and most beautiful selves when we follow it. So today, what is calling you that you are resisting?
Our earth is strong. It can hold our pains and our sorrows, our joy, our love, and our anger. Our shared bowl, which we use for joys and concerns each week, it's strong enough to hold the big rocks of our collective celebration and the mornings of it as well. The smaller stones that will be added to signify our individual joys and concerns are surrounding it. Today, I woke up with a little concern for the earth. Just a little. Wondering what beauty my child will see, what animals will still be here as he grows older. That's my personal thought for today's joys and sorrows. For those of you at home, if you would like to share a joy and sorrow, we'll have the information right up there for going online to menti.com. We who live in the desert know that water is sacred. So we use a jug like those that we leave in the desert, left in the desert by our allies in No More Deaths as a remembrance for that. If you would like to come forward and put a stone in, you may. Or if you'd like to add to the voices on menti.com, you can go see Brian Moon, and he'll help you out with that. He's right there.
We'll read from the Menti before we proceed. We have a note for someone's boss, Betty Blankenship, who is at the Mayo Clinic because of her local pulmonologist found something in her lungs. Prayer for Becky, all who surround her. I'm on all fours, facing down to earth, asking what direction do I walk? Sending you peace for that discernment. Feeling peaceful and connected this morning, like many of us. My step-grandmother, Joan, was in the emergency department last night with severe dehydration, age 92. Oh, sending prayers for Joan and all the medical staff who surround her.
Lives. We are in the churn of change. Systems and practices that we've relied on are breaking down and shifting, while what is needed is being imagined but not yet here. In times of change and loss and uncertainty, there is a risk that fear will dominate and cause us to cling to the status quo and systems that no longer serve us just for a feeling of the certainty they give and the fear of moving into the liminal more fully. But let us remember that we are not a people of fear. We are a people of faith. We are a religious people of imagination and possibility. We are a living tradition. We know that revelation is not sealed. We are a tradition that, in the words of the hymn Tranquil Streams, which was written for the merger 61 years ago that created the Unitarian Universalist Association, a faith that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love and proclaim a truth that makes us free. That was our charge at Merger 61 years ago. This is some powerful magic in our tradition, rooted in love, committed to prophetic ministry, and which welcomes the future, not with fear, but as the breaking of a new day where we all have possibility and power to create that new day. We need to remember this spirit, this power, this magic, because in liminal times, questions arise. How will we meet this moment? Who will we be? The world we knew is passing. All things grow strange. These words, written by Unitarian Universalist minister A. Powell Davies, who served the All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C. in the 1940s and 50s. That, too, was an in-between time, with the world experiencing the collective trauma and inhumanity of the Holocaust and the U.S.'s use of atomic weapons. There were also powerful movements for liberation and civil rights that would gain ground over the next decades. For that time, A. Powell Davies wrote, "The world we knew is passing. All things grow strange. For us, there is no haven or refuge. For us, there is wilderness, wild and trackless, where we shall build a road and sing a song, our gift to those who follow us along the road we build, singing our song."
If you don't know, that is Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. She is your Unitarian Universalist Association president, and I'll give more of the context for those words she delivered later. But first, this sermon, part 1 and part 2, require that we at least understand what the 7 principles are. So, you didn't come for a test, but here's a pop quiz. Can we name the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism? And I'm saying 7 intentionally. I know about the 8th. Today, we're talking about the 7. Right? So, can we name them? Let's see how many we can name. Anybody remember one? I heard a few. Inherent worth and dignity of every person. Perfect. What else? Free search for truth and meaning. What is the web of existence? Do you have more of the words, the web of existence one? Interdependent respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are all part. Are there any more? We've got 3. 4 more. Lisa, well, it's a little bit cheating. Let's try. Anyone who's not ordained, have another one. We had one in the back. Democratic process. Use of the democratic process in our congregations and the world at large. Anybody got a 5th one in their brain? Independent search for truth and meaning, right? 5. 2 more. That's pretty good. Okay, ordained folks. Anybody got 2 more? Or almost ordained folks? Anybody who's been in any part of seminary? Lost track. We have inherent worth and dignity. We have We have 1, 7. Okay, projectionist. Can you get the slide up? We'll find the one we don't know. We don't remember. Okay, click through. Projectionists, click through one by one. Inherent worth and dignity of every person. We got that one. Next one, justice, equity, and compassion, human relations. Lisa, you were going to say that one. Okay, so we got 6. We did not get this one. Anybody have this one in their minds? Number 3 is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Next, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. I misquoted that one, sorry. The right of conscience and the use of democratic processes within our congregation and society at large. We mostly got that one. Did we get this one? No. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. We got 5. That's one more than I expected us to get. That's not bad. I borrowed this process from a friend who did a similar sermon to what I'm doing today, and they only got 4. So we've beat the only other congregation that did this. If we're in a game. I'm not competitive. Can you tell? The words you heard just before we did that little pop quiz were delivered, as I said, by Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, who used to serve our congregation up in Phoenix and Paradise Valley, Arizona. They were delivered this summer as part of her 2022 President's Report to the Association at General Assembly. General Assembly is an annual gathering of thousands, literally thousands of Unitarian Universalists from around the country and world who come together to do the work of our association, which is both relationship building and democratic decision making. This is the final year of Reverend Susan's presidency, which has been marked by great change and transformation of our association and of our congregations. Her term began in the midst of our association and our congregations, again, grappling with the impacts of white supremacy culture on our institutions, and has continued through the pandemic, when church as we knew it, the way things are, was turned on its head, and it is ending now, again, as we as a denomination reconsider who we say we want to become. Part of the work of who we say we want to become is being led by the Article 2 Commission, which was appointed in fall of 2020 by the UUA Board of Trustees. Who has come understanding what the Article 2 Commission is? I see 4 or 5 hands. Okay, 6 with mine. You don't have a hand. 7? Okay, 7. It's good for me to know. The commission was charged with reviewing and suggesting changes to Article 2, that Article 2 Commission, of the UUA's bylaws. Anybody know what Article 2 contains? Who doesn't know what Article 2 Commission was? Article 2 contains principles and sources of Unitarian Universalism, among other things, the 7 principles and the 6 sources. This is the part of our bylaws that defines who we say we are as Unitarian Universalists. The 7 principles were initially adopted by the General Assembly in 1987. And the UUA bylaws require that there be a thorough review of Article 2 every 15 years. And still, there's been a few attempts at a thorough review, but there have been no substantive changes made to the 7 principles since 1987, which is 35 years ago, before I was born, just for context. A 6th source was added to the sources. There were initially 5, now there are 6, honoring our pagan and earth-based traditions. And a word has been changed here or there, no substantive change to the principles. Why do our bylaws require a review of Article 2, you might ask? That part of our bylaws that defines who we are. Reverend Susan mentioned that we are a living tradition. We grow and change. We acknowledge that we are always learning and growing and changing. Our faith is growing along with us. So we need our bylaws advice, and we need, I think, to regularly return to the question, does this who we say we are, still stretch us to become the people we want to be? And so from time to time, we need to review who we say we want to become. As A. Powell Davies said, we need to build a road and sing a song, our gift to those who follow us. Ever so often, we have to poll ourselves and explore if there are new ways we can define ourselves. And this is what the Article 2 Commission has done for the past 2 or more years. They have polled Unitarian Universalists and gathered feedback. They have held listening sessions and given us the best they have, which is a draft that you all should have gotten. Anybody not have that draft? 2 sheets of paper. Our ushers will bring you one if you put your hand up for it. The Article 2 Commission was explicitly, this is important, they were explicitly charged by the UUA board 2 things, among other things, but 2 things that I think are really important. Part of their charge was to put love at the center. So if you see that diagram, love is at the center, because the word love is not present in our current principles, but it's something we talk about a lot, right? Shock, because we talk about it a lot. Compassion's there, which is similar, but different, I think, from love. Another charge they had, and this I think answers a few questions you might have as we get going, they were charged explicitly to not just rewrite the 7 principles. They were charged to come up with a new format, a new way of presenting who we are, who we say we are. Personally, I am proud and excited by the work that has come out of the Article 2 Commission. I see handouts still coming, folks. Yeah. I am excited and proud of this work. There are new ideas here that are expansive, and I think set us on a good collective course. There's a shift away from principles towards values that I think can serve our living tradition well. And to be very honest, I have been disappointed in the Commission's communication around their process. I'm telling you because I've already told them I'm disappointed, so I'm allowed to bring it bigger. I am someone who is usually pretty clued into what's happening across the denomination. I knew this commission was doing work. I was on their email list even, and still there were times where I only found out about listening sessions to react to this very draft you're holding the day it was happening, the day the first one was happening. So I have some real disappointments here, but I didn't. So even because I found out about it so late, I engaged in the process myself, but I didn't have the understanding of how to engage you all beyond like sending a link out, which no one reads to the end of those emails, right? So here we are. I regret that I am disappointed in some of the communications. I regret that I didn't involve you more fully earlier on, and it feels important to name both of those things next to my excitement here. So if you're feeling out of the loop, one of the not 7 of us who raised their hands, if you're feeling out of the loop, that is real and true, and I felt it too. And now, today, because I'm using this very pulpit to do this with you, you are officially in the loop and part of the process, whether you want to be or not. It's Nineveh. We are bringing ourselves back to Nineveh. You are right. So in this service, we are going to review the Commission's current draft of Article 2, which some of you are already looking at, a few times. We are reading this a few times because this is what the Commission asked us to do. First, we will read this through this document and observe how it makes us feel. Notice they want us to feel first as Unitarian Universalists. And then we'll read it through a second time later, and we will see what it makes us, observe what it makes us think. And then the Commission, if you choose to give them a feedback, there's an email there where you can give them feedback, not me. I will not get your feedback for you. You can give it directly. But you can give them feedback if you would like to after you read through a third time. So, we are going to read this through on our own, take a few minutes, and what are we going to do? Observe how it makes us feel. If you wanted to jot down some notes, you might have gotten a pen on your way in, or our usher can bring a pen around. And if you could look up from your paper when you're done, that will give me indication when we're ready to move on. Okay, I see 75 to 80% have done. Name some of the feelings out loud. What did you feel as you read that? Freshness. Confusion. Say it again. hopeful, cool, and corporate. What does it feel like to be corporate? Anyway, one more feelings. Yeah. Say, uplifted. What else? Love. Was there one I missed here? Love too? Yuck. Yuck. Ambitious. Dee Dee, let's not do the microphone. I'll repeat it. It's okay. All common sense. Feelings. What did you feel? Proud. Muddled, Shirley. Confused. More confusion. What else? Thankful. This side of the room's kind of quiet. Any more from this section? You're always the quiet section. It's interesting. Ambivalent. Anybody sad? Anybody feel a little sad? Some sadness, maybe? Nostalgia. Good. I'm sure you felt more. Again, you could write them down if you want to remember how it made you feel. We're going to move forward in our service, and as we do, we are going to sing a song that Reverend Susan cited in her words earlier, so the lyrics might sound familiar. As Tranquil Streams was commissioned for the first shared hymnal of the Unitarians and the Universalists, they had a shared hymnal before they were a denomination. And it was sung as the opening hymn to the service of consolidation when the Unitarians and Universalists were voting to consolidate. So they sung this song as their processional. So as they sing these words, consider how they speak to this moment when we are again considering a big change in our faith. Let's sing.
Please rise in body or spirit, as you will, as tranquil streams. Test. As tranquil streams that new urge and flow as one, the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free. Freedom, the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed. Free from a social road that fails to serve the cause of human need. A freedom that reverses past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventures boldly and explore. Prophetic Church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
However you have participated today in our congregation, in today's service, our congregation relies on you for financial support. For those of you here in person, on your right as you entered there were baskets, and there'll be people with baskets walking around shortly. You can place your donation in the basket now or after service. For those of you watching us afar, you can write a check to the office, give online at uuctucson.org/donate, or text 833-361-5796, and I bet Janice can put that in the text for you online in the chat window. And we have been warmed by the fires that we did not build here today. We have drunk from wells that we did not dig. In acknowledgement of our many blessings and many needs, please place your contribution in the offering basket as you may.
Yes, Hangyu, that was lovely. And it sounds like you read the reading that will come now, The Flying Trapeze. Didn't sound like trapeze. This is The Flying Trapeze by Danan Pari. Sometimes I feel my life is a series of trapeze swings. I'm either hanging onto a trapeze bar, swinging along, or for a few moments, I'm hurtling across space between the bars. Mostly, I spend my time hanging on for dear life to the trapeze bar of the moment. It carries me along a certain steady rate of swing, and I have the feeling that I am in control. I know most of the right questions and even some of the right answers. But once in a while, as I'm merrily, or not so merrily, swinging along, I look ahead of me into the distance, and what do I see? I see another trapeze bar looking at me. It's empty. And I know that this new bar has my name on it. It is my next step, my growth, my aliveness coming to get me. In my heart of hearts, I know that for me to grow, I must release my grip on the present well-known bar to move to the new one. Each time it happens, I hope, no, I pray that I won't have to grab the new one. But deep down, I know that I must totally release my grasp on the old bar, and for some moments in time, I must hurtle across space before I can grab the new one. Each time I am filled with terror. It doesn't even matter that in all my previous hurdles, I've always made it. Each time I'm afraid I will miss, that I will be crushed on unseen rocks in the bottomless basin between the bars. But I do it anyways. I must. The 7 principles themselves have led us to this very point, where reviewing and revising who we say we are is a worthwhile task. In a report by another UUA group, the Commission on Appraisal, which is a body of Unitarian Universalists who used to study trends in our faith, do really intensive study, they observed that 7 principles have helped us move, quote, from independence to interdependence, from individualism to relationism. The 7 principles are a covenant that our congregation affirms by virtue of being part of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. For 35 years, by virtue of our relationship with our denomination, we have been in covenant with the 7 principles. Since 1987, those 7 principles have clarified the relationships between our congregations and denomination, and then gradually over time, they've also begun to clarify the relationship between us, Unitarian Universalists in general. And now that they have changed us, they've changed the way we relate and who we are, there are some questions floating around. We've named one kind of. Where is love in our principles? What do we need to stay in covenant with one another? Where, if at all, does our inspiration towards becoming anti-racist and anti-oppressive come from? The last question is at least in part answered by the 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism, which this congregation, some of you we adopted in May 2021. And a quick note here, because it's another frequent question. Yeah, we've got some requests to go back to that other one. Go forward, actually, to the white one. Yep, I think we had some requests for that one. Maybe, okay. Paula Cole-Jones, 8th principle. Paula Cole-Jones, who's one of the co-authors of the 8th principle, she's on the commission, Article 2 commission, as she has said, when people ask, what about the 8th principle? She has said, go forth and engage in this process. So that is the charge from Paula Cole-Jones. We are at this place as a body where we have been transformed by our principles that we and our ancestors adopted 35 years ago. And now we are asking, what do we need for the road ahead? Some of you might say, the 7 principles, the 8 principles, right? Some of us might say that. And while you, might ultimately land back in that spot, I'm asking just for this base today if you will consider what a different road would feel like and look like when you review this draft. Comparison is not the goal here, because of course, those of us who have been held by and raised by this faith, I've carried that thing in my wallet for 15, 20 years, no joke. We are attached to the principles. So comparing that to this new thing that we don't really know, and as Howard noted earlier, is going to have substantial revision before it's actually voted upon, comparing them really doesn't feel fair. It feels like we need to give this draft a shot and say, what would the road ahead with this draft be like? What if this is what these values are what defined us? Ultimately, every delegate to the General Assembly this summer will have a chance to vote for or against the new Article 2, which will be revised before then. And this draft will look a lot different. And then we will vote at General Assembly the year after that. It's 2 votes in a row, because this is serious change. It's a higher percentage that's needed in 2024. If you'd like to be one of those delegates, we rarely have a full slate. So talk to me or one of your Board of Trustees members if you'd like to be a delegate from this congregation to vote at General Assembly this summer. You can do that in person in Pittsburgh or online, which is really cool. To be fair to this process and to put the work put into it by the Article 2 Commission, I want us to look back at that new draft and imagine the future that it could create for us. Like that trapeze metaphor in the reading, we can take the risk to jump to the new bar, knowing the other one is still back there if we want to voluntarily fall and climb back up, right? So as you read the proposed Article 2 a second time, at least get through the values section. I encourage you to take this as the next bar in the trapeze. Hold on to it, see what view it offers, think about what future would be possible with these words, and imagine how these words could shape you and us. And if you're so inclined, write down a few thoughts about how this Article 2 makes you think, what it makes you think. Go forth. And if you're online, there's a few links to this document that we're reading now in the chat. It'll probably be 4 or 5 minutes. see a few still reading, but I'll invite you to finish later. So the Article 2's commissions process asks that you read it a third time and then offer feedback. Their formal feedback gathering processes for this draft are over. But if you have feedback that feels important to share and you want someone to hear it on the commission, I've written in the email address that you can email at the bottom of that sheet. So email your feedback there, how it made you feel, how it made you think, and other feedback you have. And I promise that when there's a that the next draft that Howard mentioned, which is being given to the UUA Board of Trustees this month, we will do something like this again. So you will see that in the middle of the feedback process at some point. We'll figure it out. Is there a way for congregants to get this draft? It will be, if you're inclined, the Article 2 Commission has a page on the UUA's website. If you go to their website and search Article 2, it'll be posted there. You can also ask your minister. I know I'm not your minister. You can email me. You could ask your minister too. They'd be able to get to you, hopefully. I will end this very heady, not so spiritual sermon that I gave, because it had to happen, with words from Reverend James Luther Adams, one of the great theologians, Unitarian Universalist theologians of the 20th century. He writes, "The prophetic liberal church is the church in which persons think and work together to interpret the signs of the times in light of their faith, to make explicit through discussion the ethical thinking that the times demand. The prophetic liberal church is the church in which all members share the common responsibility to attempt to foresee the consequences of human behavior, both individual and institutional, with the intention of making history in place of merely being pushed around by it. Only through the prophetism of all believers can we together foresee doom and mend our common ways." Friends, may we engage in the process of dreaming this next chapter of our liberal faith. May we do this well and faithfully and honestly, and may we remember to love one another through it all. Amen, and blessed be.
Please respond to this song by standing, and the words for the hymn will be on the screen. Best. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, the world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
please join me now for a word of chalice distinguishing by Brian Chieli. The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in our minds and hearts and souls, on in each one of you. Carry the flame with you and leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet.